Greetings, everybody, and I say it every week, or whenever, every month, or every couple of days when we have somebody in here. Very special guest, as you can see as you've clicked on this link. This name really doesn't need much introduction. I've got a couple of bullet points here for those of you who don't know all of the achievements and accolades that have occurred in this man's lifetime with his work, but we're looking at a Grammy Award-nominated record producer and musician, holder of the 2014 Lifetime Achievement Award at the Carolina Music Awards, and has a number 1 title and number 2 title on the Billboard charts. I think both from the 90s, if I remember correctly. He's worked with major record label artists such as Cry of Love, Dag, Corrosion of Conformity, Big Something. Guitar playing was heard on such brands as VH1, Ford, Mazda, Coca-Cola. The names go on and on. Production work and music appearances. Appear in soundtracks for notable films such as Clerks with Kevin Smith starring, and The Fan with Robert De Niro starring, Bad Boys, Will Smith starring.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, the man I refer to as the godfather of metal in the North Carolina region. That's my own coining term, but please welcome Mr. John Custer.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Let's just let's start with the beginning. Let me get rid of this piece of paper because I already have enough tabs and units in front of me here. Beginning stages. Now, I know a little bit about your story based on a phone call that we had when I went to New York for the first time on my own, which is similar to what you did. I even want to go back before that to like grade school, music in general. How did this start?
Well, I played guitar for a couple of years, but I was in school in 6th grade, and a teacher took me out in the hall and said that a girl had written a poem, and could I write music to it for the Christmas show. So I went home and wrote it and brought it in the next day. We played it at the Christmas show. Everybody went berserk. All my friends were just, so happy that their friend was doing something kind of out of the norm. This is old Carrie. It was like hunting and fishing and football, pretty much.
Right.
So if you played guitar, you were strange, considered to be, right? And so then they made me play it at a bigger thing, and then a bigger thing, and then they had me touring schools, playing for other schools and this kind of deal. So I was kind of ushered in as the kid who plays guitar at your school. I was him. And I wanted to play sports, but the doctors told me, you play football and you break this, no more guitar, right? And I was on the tennis team and that kind of stuff, but for the standardized experience of school, I didn't really involve myself. I stayed home and I tried to figure out Led Zeppelin songs and things like that, right? A thing we all did.
And it's funny because generation to generation, it's like some of those are still the go-tos, whether it's Zeppelin or Clapton.
Yeah.
And Van Halen. And I remember, is it true that Van Halen, that was a main influence for you as far as Eddie's playing, and you were doing 6 to 8 hours a day? I remember reading somewhere years ago that was really what you cut your teeth with at some point.
Well, nobody knew how to do it, and they played at Carter Finley Stadium, and he came out, and it was the first time any of us had seen right hand on fretboard.
Right.
And we all looked at each other in amazement. Like, what the hell is he? He's breaking the goddamn rules, He's not supposed to. So,
yeah.
Of course, all the guitar players in school went home from that concert trying to figure out what the hell
is going on here.
And there was no YouTube tutorial
Yeah.
or anything like that. So you had to go home and figure it out yourself. That for hours.
Holy
hours.
shit.
So the first agent that I had when I was 19, he said that I had figured it out and that it was some kind of a pitch for the band. Here's the guy that figured out this Van Halen stuff. The only reason I figured out the Van Halen stuff is because my band couldn't get gigs doing all original material. They wouldn't book that back then and on the Southeastern circuit. So we said to each other, we have to work up songs that we can perform that are covers. Well,
Right.
we tried to do Journey, but the vocals are too high. We tried to do Rush, but the vocals are too high. Everything, vocals are too high. The only vocals that weren't too high were David Lee Roth, and I could do David Lee Roth.
So you were fronting.
Well, we all kind of did.
Okay.
We were kids, we were just 19 years old, 19, 20, something like that. This is when the drinking age was 18. So when you played, we played from Maryland all the way down to Augusta, Georgia, down to Florida, all over the Southeast.
Right.
But the clubs were gigantic. These are kids that are still in high school going out. So you'd play for 1,000. That would be just another night. Then the drinking age went up to 21. And this thing came out called the Tascam Porta 1. It was a cassette format 4-track recorder at home. You got 4 tracks, right? So quit the band thing and the cover thing and just dove into doing recording because that was more, seemed to have a lifespan. It was much greater than, playing Rat. So, so we kind of
Round and round.
Yeah, all of that, and that was fun because it got you. You had a taste of how it is to win over an audience and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And but the rest of the guys that were in that whole, I guess that environment, ended up with. Children they hadn't planned on, STDs, this kind of thing, right?
Right.
And it appeared to me that New York was the only place to go. It was like somehow, some way, I was going to have to end up there eventually, right? My agent picked me up one day and said, "We're driving to New York because you're going to have to navigate this city eventually. You need to get used to it now."
Why was it? This is a really interesting topic in the sense of New York, because I did the same thing myself, and it's worked out very well for me, career wise, but also just personally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we look at LA. We look at in this industry, LA, Nashville, New York is kind of like the big 3 kingpins. Why New York for you? Why New York? Because of the agent pushing you. Was there any reason particular to?
I'd been doing some guitar work for a project.
Okay.
The guy also worked at the #1 scoring house in America at the time. And he was taking what we were doing in his little studio in and playing it for the other guys. And they were saying, "Get that damn guy up here.
Right.
Get him on whatever, right?"
Right.
At the time, they were working also with the biggest bands in the world, really, Duran Duran and all that. So when you'd walk in, there's John Taylor and there's Simon Le Bon and all this stuff. So you got to experience what rock stars were like, the ego, all that kind of thing. And you got to factor in Eddie Money was in there, and then Grace Jones, but I also got to play with Andy Newmark, who was in Sly and the Family Stone, and he played on More Than This by Roxy Music. And it was kind of when you weren't playing and they would just tell their stories that you were being educated the most. So, and plus you got to see what New Yorkers were like. on the corporate end of things, the vicious sort of absence of a heart kind of thing. So you had musicians that were all heart, and then you had the business folks that were willing to eat their young. Right. So very educational.
Right. Now, so you went up there right after 19?
No, I went up there at 22, 23.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Before I went there, I had a mentor here in North Carolina named Kenny Soul, who was great.
Well, he was my first teacher's mentor, because Merritt Partridge was my drum teacher from 98 to 08.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
I gave him a tape of my stuff, and he called me up. He said, "Come over here." And I said, "All right." He said, "I'm going to teach you how to walk up the street." Right. He said, "Down the street, there's this ice cream I want, but we're going to walk, and I'm going to teach you how to walk up the street." And I said, "Why do I need to know how to walk up the street?" He said, "Because you're an asshole." Woo! He said, "I'm going to teach you how to walk up the street." He said, "There's only two things you need. Yeah and oh yeah. That's all you need." And so we were walking up the street, and he gets stopped every 5 steps. People coming up to him, "PKM, Nantucket,
right,
da, da, da."
Right.
And he's going, yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. That's all he did. And we got to the end of the street after he did it 1,000,000 times, right? And he said, "Do you see how hard that is?" And he said, "That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. Just listen to what they're saying, because that's feeding your entire being, whatever they're saying. And just say yeah, and then shut up. Just shut up."
So this was in Raleigh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would try to strike up these conversations and all this kind of stuff. And I was 20. And what was important was to hear what they were having to say, because there's your feedback. That's your demographic talking to you, right? And so very early on, I just kind of learned this, do more of this than this kind of thing.
I'm sure it helped with the production side of things too, right?
Yeah, it did.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Masterclass Bit 101 right there.
Yes.
So I've got guitar, I've got songwriting, I've got producing, engineering, influences. So we kind of hit guitar. We'll get to songwriting a little bit. Let's talk about influences just a little bit more, if you'll allow me to indulge. So Zeppelin, Van Halen, any others, even outside of the rock genre, if you were, because your scope of production is just all over the place, and it's killer all over the place, as anybody will attest. David Manconi. It doesn't matter who's in the press kit and saying that, whether it's somebody really high on the food chain or not. Everybody's just.
Well, my parents were more than cosmopolitan folk. My father was in the CIA, and my mother was Secret Service. And when they came here, it was for that Research Triangle Park, the military industrial complex. Mm-hmm. And they had a worldview, not a local view.
Right.
And if any of us were to say anything that could be even considered closed-minded at all, we heard from them pretty aggressively.
Right.
So my mother brought home a lot of Sergio Mendes and the Brazil 66, wow, and Jose Feliciano and Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. She'd bring home those records, but she'd also bring home Glenn Campbell, Wichita Lineman, this kind of thing. That was the scope of it all. If it was good, if they were talented, it got into the house. And my grandmother gave us money one year for something. I forget what it was. And my mom said, "I'm going to buy you one thing for all three of you, me and my two sisters." She bought us the Jackson 5's Greatest Hits album. Well, after that, I was buying Earth, Wind & Fire. I was buying a lot of Marvin Gaye, and a lot of, all the Ohio Players stuff, all of it, all the Sly. And in the meantime, I was also very much into the Queen stuff, but I freaked out completely my senior year of high school on the first Ricky Lee Jones record, which was sort of a Joni Mitchell area of, and Steely Dan Asia and all that, a lot of the standard stuff. But then I discovered Aaron Copland's Lincoln Portrait and some classical stuff, and that's when CPE started taking off. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a wide thing, but it didn't seem like that to me because I had a very good friend named Andrew Hubner who would come over to the house. One day he's just staring at me with his eyes wide open, holding up this record. And he's like, we have to listen to this now, And it was Never Mind the Bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols, right?
Right.
So we go down and we're listening to it and we're just staring at each other like, what is this? And of course, after that is Descendants and Black Flag and all of it. And Clash, that was a big, big thing. And it all appealed to me because there was this visceral sense of dedication to it all.
What were you buying into with the punk scene? Because punk, for me, it took a while. The Police actually drew me into punk because I always wanted to get fed that cerebral part of the music more so than the, just Ramones, 3 chords, and I love what they did, but it almost took the Police to go in there. Stuart Copeland saw something in the punk scene, reached in, grabbed it. They did it in their own way, and then I was like, oh, okay. It's about the vibe. It's about the guttural, visceral, as you would attest. But I want to get your opinion on it as far as...
Yeah, I thought it was...
What did it do for you?
The subtext was really the so-called message. It wasn't really message so much as it was, if someone is complaining about something with this much, this extreme sort of violent attitude about it, it must be significant. And I've missed it in my white boy world where I'm just, I'm in the Brady Bunch over here compared to these people, right? So I've got to understand what it is. And when you looked into it, when you looked into all of those things and you realized that these guys were doing their homework and then they were writing songs about it and it was important, that it was far flung from the other stuff that was, I want to get laid, I want to get laid, I want to get laid, which is what a lot of the other stuff was. Right. So they were bands that you took a little more seriously, but then you realized how punk rock What's Going On was by Marvin Gaye, which was a civil rights song, right? And you start looking to it, you look into Strange Fruit with Billie Holiday and all this stuff, and you realize punk rock's been around.
It's been around, just was...
Now here's the new version,
Yeah, that's cool. Songwriting for you, is it safe to say it started with the Tascam or the 4-track time frame when, how did that happen? Was it more of just experimenting with, because I got my Korg 4-track digital thing when I was 12, whatever, before Pro Tools, and that was like a kid in a candy store, even with just a couple of mics, and I'd have to hang them from the, before this place was finished, I'd hang them from the ceiling,
Right. Yeah.
And just experiment.
I guess, what really, there were a couple of things that always fascinated me and kind of were obsessive as far as thinking about them. But one was a track called I'm Not in Love by 10cc, where they took a Mellotron, which had standardized loops in it. They were tape loops, right?
Right.
And you can hear it on a lot of Beatles. You can hear it on Nights in White Satin. That's all. That's not an orchestra. That's a Mellotron. Mm-hmm. 10cc took all of those loops out and made their own loops with voices, and they had to put each track through a channel of an entire console and play the console like a keyboard, right? And that's why that record sounds above and beyond anything that was out at the time. Well, I always wanted to know, why did they pick that methodology when they wrote the song? Somebody said, hey, let's do that. So then you start thinking about any of it. Roy Thomas Baker, Night at the Opera, Queen. How did they come up with all of that, right? So there seemed to be something more than just technical to it. There seemed to be something organically, like wizardry, magic,
right.
you know. And I wanted to have a part of that, the creative process. It's fascinating.
Couldn't have said it better. And I mean, it taps into, you know, from producer to producer, it's just, and me obviously looking up to you in so many different facets and inspired and influenced by your work. It's kind of funny though, because as I get older, I realize it really is the same. It's all coming from the same place of, and Bob Rock always talked about how inspiration is number one. Like if you lose inspiration, you've lost it all.
Yeah.
The sound, the performance, the capturing, it all stems from that place of inspiration.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's go to New York then. I remember you told me a story one time. Executives or producers would walk through a hallway, allegedly, and listen to different guitar players in practice rooms and pick the guitar player for the ad or the placement or the session, literally by just walking and hearing and going off of that.
Yeah. It was like an old West shootout. You were in this room, there was a hallway, and there was another guy in the room across the hall. And they would tell you on your headphones, go, and you'd say, there's no music. Go what? They say, just rip the shit out of your guitar right now.
Were they running tape?
No.
No, they were just...
No. They would give you I was playing through an old Marshall Jubilee. I remember that. We called it Sweet Jane, and I would turn up the gain and just go.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who the other guy was across the hall, and the head of the studio would walk down the hall, right? And they said if you saw his face in the little window of your room, then you got the job, right? So he looked into the room, and the next day I had to play on this Jovan commercial. It was kind of a real tribal, fast thing, but they wanted it to sound. They would give you cues. You know how it goes. They give you cues like play like The Edge, but really, really fast. You know, that kind of thing. And
make sure your delay is short enough.
Yeah.
So it's like.
And so that was it. You learned that when you go in there and you get one shot. I mean, they wouldn't give you, multiple takes.
Jeez.
One shot at it. It was just nothing but pressure. Yeah. Oh, well.
Can you talk about pressure real quick?
Sure. Well, the pressure really with making a record is that it's not like a job where people are answering to a boss and their coworkers, right? Or any kind of company-related affiliates, right? If you make a record and it's going to get out there, the fans are going to say what they're going to say. And even in the old days, you were going to be reviewed by a guy with a journalism degree and an opinion in whatever kind of paper. And then there were the time-honored critics who reviewed for what it would be now would be Metal Hammer and Thrasher and Rolling Stone and all that kind of thing. Even the little things like Entertainment Weekly, they would review. So if you failed, you failed in front of God and everyone.
Right.
And so when you're making the record, anyone who tells you that that's not a psychological factor is lying. It is going to go out there in front of everyone. So then you have to be true to the original intent of the artist. It has to come to fruition, and they have to say, it's better than I thought it would be. They can't say, that's it. It's got to be better, right? And if you do the research, you know that that's what happened at Motown, with Queen, with all these bands that did these superlative recordings. They surpassed their original goals. So the pressure is, how am I going to go there, interact, collaborate effectively, articulate ideas so that they know what my metaphors mean, so things are effective, not just poetic or like that kind of thing. And so it's kind of, you're the field goal kicker in that game last night. There's no time left, and it's tied, or you're down by 1 if you don't kick the field goal. It's like that, yeah. And there are 1 million people that want to take the place of those people and have those opportunities. And you realize how lucky you are to be there, so you have to make the most of it. There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. While you were talking about pressure, I wrote down a couple of bullet points here ancillary to what I had. You're very active on social media now, and I know how you think to a certain degree about the big record industry, and there's multiple quotes out there published of what you have to say, and you're very vocal about it. I want to talk about kind of that in social media and your take on what's going on right now. You've been in the game 30 plus years. Where are we going? Is this a plus or a minus for an artist, social media, in your opinion? And I'm sure that there's overlap in that, as far as it's probably both.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, you can't get away from the comparison to the motion picture studios. Paramount, in the old days, Paramount had all of its actors under contract. You made Paramount Pictures, right? The studio system collapsed. Just like Napster came in and the record industry collapsed.
Right.
No more MTV, no more radio, no more any of that, right? So
technological Darwinism.
Yes, and and look what happened in those years after the collapse of the motion picture studio system. Hollywood made kind of can't lose movies, like all the Bible movies, all the Bible related movies. Those were in that time period because everyone would go see that, right? Kind of like now they're doing, instead of the biggest, like the most attractive thing to us coming up would have been the most innovative, the most majestic thing. David Bowie, Elton John, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Paul McCartney, all that, right? Today, the thing that gets the most spotlight time is Kanye West and Taylor Swift. Why? Because they're playing to the scandal sort of aspect of things. Meanwhile, there are 1 million bands out there right now that are amazing bands. But how long do they last? Remember MGMT? That song comes out, everywhere you go, every bar, everywhere it's playing. Where are they? Now, in our day, MGMT would be the Cars. They would have 6 more albums to go. MGMT had nothing, right? Which is a shame, because that first single by them indicates that they would have had a lot of great material. But since they didn't start a bar fight or get a DUI or punch a monkey or defecate in their hand and eat it or whatever, then they didn't get on TMZ. They didn't, you know what I'm saying?
So what you're saying is, go on the New York subway system right now.
Yeah.
That's your next star in the industry.
Meanwhile, the great stars and these talented people that you see randomly, it's an arbitrary thing. It just goes by so quickly. And you see these bands that are wonderful, but they're lost out there in the mix because the people grabbing the biggest star probably that I grew up with would be somebody like Robert Redford or somebody like that. So Robert Redford does those movies, but then he starts Sundance, and obviously he's got a brain in that skull of his, right? Biggest stars now that people talk about are the Kardashians and this kind of thing. So we are the Romans. We have now defaulted to the Roman Colosseum. We're seeing the most disgusting thing and clapping for it, you know. And it's too bad because
It's a good parallel.
it is.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
yeah.
It's. But I think it's turning around, and I think bands, I like a Greta Van Fleet and bands like that come out. I think they're resurrecting. Like remember when people could sing really cool and play really cool.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of resurrecting it.
You've heard of Eric Gales, right? And Jared James,
Yeah.
Nichols, and some of these guys that are coming up. And it's like, thank God somebody's playing with a Black Star or a Marshall stack behind them. And not only that, but they're really, really, really playing their ass off.
Yeah.
You know?
The Singleton, that country guy, singing his ass off, playing
Yeah.
his ass off.
Yeah.
Derek Trucks,
He's
playing
still
his
doing
ass
it.
off. Yeah.
You know?
It's there. It's there's a lot of hope, but people have to realize you create the Frankenstein monster, right? Then one day it comes back and it kills you. So you can create all these Kanye West and Kardashian and all this stuff all you want, but one day there's going to be a knock on your door. They're going to come back. And the problem is there's a deficit. And when there's a deficit in the arts, then certain other aspects seem to take over American society. If you look at history, the arts kind of distract us from the more ugly things, let's say like a Bernie Madoff or a Ken Lay or something like that. So I think the arts are important that way. And I would prefer people clapping for Mikhail Baryshnikov instead of Paris Hilton, you know. Just my opinion.
Well, let me ask you this: for all the real artists on there, because that's thankfully who's the demographic for this show and for this vlog. That's the whole reason why I started this. For those out there that really are following their vision quest and their pursuit, what advice would you have in the sense of in the world that we're in with just these flash in the pan marketing spurts? Like how do you navigate through the BS? Do you even try? What do you just focus on the content? What is your opinion of it?
Unfortunately, it's a schizophrenic view. I'd say two things. It's not as bad as you think.
Okay.
Because Elvis had to tour, right, in '56, along with Carl Perkins.
With Johnny Cash, too.
All of them, right?
Yeah.
But it's far worse than you think because everything is undefined right now, right? That means I think people have to define their devotion, right? This band I'm working with, I've been working with them for 10 years. They're called Big Something.
Big Something.
And
damn, does that record sound good, man? Listening to it when I was writing up the notes.
Well, they have never, I mean, they've been home in those 10 years, maybe like 2 days, it seems like. They've just been in that van touring. And it's like those old documentaries you see about a country taking over other countries where their flag just spreads out over the continent. So they're so big now. I mean, they're playing gigantic things. They just scored this very, very influential guy who manages Widespread Panic. Mm-hmm. And now he's their manager now, too. And they're blowing up, right? But their devotion is obvious because they get in a van and they just go and go and go. It's funny, next time I see them once a year. We make another record kind of thing.
Right.
And
they probably do it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
With that talent.
Yeah, they're wicked. It's amazing what the road does to their playing. Jesse Hensley is one of the more lyric, more enjoyable, bombastic, beautiful guitar players. And it's that rare thing in a guitar player, well, where you can tell who it is without looking.
Yeah.
He's got that now.
Yeah.
He's an assassin. Casey Cranford, their drummer Ben, all of them. They're just, when we started out, they were all 21, 22, 23, like that.
Right.
So that's devotion. That is devotion. With COC, they all dropped out of high school, got in a van, did the same thing. They never came home. They just made fans and more fans and more fans. Because in the end, the mean old corporate guys, yeah, they can screw you up pretty badly. But your fans will never leave you. I mean, unless you shoot Mickey Mouse in the head with a gun in the middle of Times Square, you do something so terrible, they will abandon you then. But if you give to the fans, like COC used to play these punk rock shows in basements, and there'd be 40 people there, right? All moshing, they're all like 17. And they did that. They slept on floors. People had to buy them food. They were skinny as rails and all that. That's devotion. I did the same thing when I was in New York. I didn't have money, so I decided to stop eating when I was playing on all those commercials. And I dropped down. I lost 60 pounds. And when I came home from there, my mother collapsed when she saw me. She thought I had cancer.
Holy shit.
Or AIDS or something, But it was one of those things where you say to yourself, I'll be damned if I'm going to fail. Yeah. I'm just not going to fail.
Yeah.
Even if I have to give up eating. That's how it goes. But that's what Beethoven did.
Yeah.
It's not new.
Did you ever read that I don't know where I read this, somewhere online. He'd take a bath and he'd scream at himself. That was literally one of his creative mechanisms, and I don't know where I read that, but I was curious to see just because his name came up.
Yeah,
but that's the first thing I think of when I hear Beethoven now.
Well, it's the same motivations, right? We love music. You and I, obviously, when you hear you play guitar, when you hear me play guitar, you can tell we sat on a bed for a long time playing the damn thing to get that adept, right? So then you hear about. So Beethoven decides one day that he's going to challenge every piano player in Vienna. And his fast piano pieces. So he would play those and they would leave Vienna. At the end of a year, there was no one left. He was the only piano player. Why was he doing it? There was this aristocratic girl. And so he went to her and said, give me that damn thing now. I'm the greatest pianist. She said, no. She said, no, I'm not going to give it to you. You're not of the right bloodline and all this stuff.
Oh!
So pop quiz, he goes home and he says, all right, I'm going to write her a piece. And instead of all this fast stuff, he writes her a slow piece. What was the slow piece? You know it.
I want to say Moonlight.
It was Moonlight. So guess what she did when he played it for her? Same as if you're in a band right now.
Wow.
Same. Beethoven.
Are you listening out there? I'm going to point to myself, man. Yeah.
Beethoven, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. There's a good painting of her. I can see why he wrote that.
Right, right.
But it's so funny because he was all Yngwie Malmsteen, you know, for a little while, and she wouldn't go for it. So he writes this slow thing.
Well, you know, it's funny. While I'll just segue with this. Somehow in your work, you're able to incorporate it all, as I kind of said earlier, which is why I love listening to the records that you produce. And I mean, of course, the sound is there, right? You're capturing it. You're bringing out the best or even better than what they thought based on what you just said. But God, Audley Freed, taking those solos in Cry of Love and the vocal production and the rhythm section and the mix and the relationships in the mix. There's pyrotechnics, but there's also the song.
Right. Yeah.
So what are your motivations on that? Because it's anything that I try to produce and aspire to do, that's what motivates me is literally trying to get it all in about 4 minutes, but still have it recognize, have it relatable with people, you know?
Yeah. When I was in that cover band, when I was 20, he was in the same circuit, Audley Freed. Mm-hmm. And when we would play, like, say, Fayetteville, the clubs were across the street from each other. On my break, I'd sneak over and I'd watch him. And so we ran into each other a couple years later, and I said, hey, I used to sneak across the street and watch your set. He goes, I used to sneak across the street and watch it. And so basically what it turns to, you have to be, you know, pirates on land. You go to a bar and you're going to talk to the other pirates and you're going to say, hey, what's that little island called Fiji like, you know, and you do that whole thing.
Right.
And he just said to me one night, he goes, man, I can't play, you know, Owner of a Lonely Heart anymore. I can't do it. And I said, well,
it's a great solo, you know.
Yeah. So he said, you want to jump in? Let's, you know, because I had gone to New York and I'd come back and there he was. And he was always my favorite. I always thought, you know, what was this, Alan Collins and Leonard Skinner?
Yeah.
I thought he had come back as
right.
Audley, this pyrotechnic Audley thing, you know. And so we went in there and I said, okay, all the metal albums right now have 3 tons of reverb and delay and all this stuff on them. I think since you're such a damn good guitar player, we should do a completely opposite thing, like nothing fancy, and do it completely dry. Mm-hmm. So that if anybody were to make a mistake, it would be blaring, you know, and that's the whole point. Let's bring the talent back instead of these guys who are putting on lipstick and teasing up their hair and everything. Let's have a talent-based band. So I got Kelly Holland to come from this other band and sing, because we went and saw
oh man,
went see him sing.
Yeah. God.
And I thought, okay, it's talent, you know.
Yeah.
And Jason and Robert.
Jeez.
So the same thing, you know, the first time I saw Pepper, he said they were getting done with their rehearsal. And he said, Custer, stay after here. And so I go, what? He goes, I came up with this riff, right? And he plays me this riff. It's amazing, cool riff, right? Like an hour later, he's showing me like 27 more riffs, all amazing, like enough for 3 more albums.
Right.
What, you know, we haven't even recorded this one yet, right? Mm-hmm. Reed Mullen on the drums, who in my opinion, was the best drummer of that whole time period.
Was this the Blind era?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, when I just met those guys.
Yeah.
I'd wanted to do them anyway because I thought they were the most meat-eating band ever from North Carolina. I thought, because all the other bands seem to be doing these kind of versions of Beatles or Stones. They sounded like one or the other, you know, and it was kind of that. And I understood that being an inspiration, but then here comes COC, which always sounded to me like if you're in a high school football game and a Tyrannosaurus Rex comes busting through the stands and starts eating the people. It's what the COC sounded like to me, you know. So I said, man, let's make records that sound like that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, it's funny because the only, Rammstein is the one band that for some reason just surpasses all the others as far as like gym playlist for me. Mm-hmm. You know, heavy days like squats, deadlifts, whatever. But COC sits there with them. To me, it's just this. It's
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But other metal artists, they just, I don't know, like, and people, this is just my opinion. But again, it's the simplicity, it's the groove, it's the hook, it's the riff, it's the vocal performance. Yeah. So I test with you.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew them early on. They don't remember, but I was there when they were playing and a riot broke out in Dorton Arena. The guy who was running the sound thought that people were trying to pull his monitors off the stage. So he came to the front and started hitting them.
Oh, cheers.
Well, when the singer, rest in peace, Eric Ike, he saw him doing it and he kicked him off the stage. It was a very tall stage, long drop. Broke his wrist. Fight breaks out. Whole riot thing, right? And cops come in, start arresting everybody. Well, I was back by the soundboard. They asked me to be a judge. It was like a battle of the bands thing. And so I got back to the back of the stage and I saw Mike Dean. I didn't know it was Mike Dean.
Right.
But he had these big red dreadlocks and he's sitting in this chair just dejected, bummed out. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey." And he looked at me like, "Say the wrong thing," you know, that whole thing. And I said, "It doesn't matter who wins this thing. Nobody's going to talk about anything but you guys because of this. This is good. This is good for you." And he looked at me kind of and did the whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's getting arrested. Well, they didn't remember, but I did. And I saw them years later. And they dropped by the studio for something else. I think I was working with somebody else. And they heard what I was doing. And they said, "Hey, you know, you want to get on the pirate ship?" They all look like pirates all the time, you know. So I got into that whole thing, and we're doing Blind, and it was a very hard record to make on no budget, really, you know.
You guys cut that in New York, right? At
yeah,
Baby Monster. Yeah.
Yep. And
is that in Long Island?
No, that's in the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one night they say, "Custer, you're gonna go out and you're gonna drink with us." Right.
Jeez.
So I'm like, fine. So it's like Greg Brady going out with Blackbeard. It's basically what that was like. So we're sitting there, and Pepper puts this in front of me. He says, "That's Jägermeister. Now you can't sip it. You got to just throw it back." And I said, "Okay, fine. So I throw it back and put it down. Another one, right? About 9 or 10 of them later, I'm trashed. And I said, "I don't understand. I'm drinking, you're drinking the same thing as I'm drinking, and I'm out of it.
You're done.
And you're fine." He said, "That's because I'm drinking Coke." COC. That's those guys.
Man.
Fun. It was fun.
Jeez.
I took the day off.
So I want to get into a little bit more COC and Cry Love, and you can go back and forth as you like. But while we're on COC, we'll get back to Cry Love. But so that tracking process, I'm sure it was on tape, right, at that point, right? Because it was still early '90s. I know DAT was out and whatnot, but that's got the tape analog saturated sound. were you guys cutting on the floor predominantly? What was the how? I'm just really curious to know what that tracking process was like.
That was different every record. We did.
How about Blind? If you remember,
Blind, we just got the drums first.
Okay.
With scratch guitars.
Okay.
Because Blind was a drum clinic record, you know, so we had to do it that way.
They were astounding, astounding. Every track on that, just the tightness but the girth. Again, it has everything you want, in my opinion. Okay, and then so that was more constructed. Mm-hmm. That was built from
Yeah. Well, also they were playing standard SGs with really light gauge strings, and we were having tuning problems. Our engineer had a nervous breakdown on that record. We ran out of money, and something else happened too. It was kind of impossible to make that record, but we just stayed in there.
Wow. How long did it take?
We only had a month and a half, something like that.
Okay.
We had to do it really quickly. And that was not for Columbia. It was on Columbia later. It was on Relativity. And then Columbia consumed Relativity to get Corrosion of Conformity. So, yeah, it was tough. It was a really tough experience, but I mean, it came out great. So
yeah, well, you hear about that with like the Black Album and so many records like that. It was just, people have no idea what what went on.
Right. Yeah.
What about the vocal production? And this is I've got vocal production for Kelly, vocal production for Keenan, vocal production for Bobby. We'll stay with COC right now because I mean he is just like Vote with a Bullet. I always go back to that as like God, like
yeah.
You got a vocalist that comes in that's already that prominent and strong. How do you push them even more? Or what was your process of that? Or if you want to speak generally to all these guys, or just Keenan, or
Yeah. Well, so Animosity, they were running their vocals through Rockman, if you remember those. And so we were going to do this. Well, let's see. Vote with a Bullet. I said, okay, we don't have a Rockman. Let's run your vocals through that Mesa, right? So we did.
That's on the verse, the verses, right? Yeah.
And then we did this thing where we played with this.
Sounds like you got a phaser or something. Like some like.
Yeah. It was an old Eventide thing, and we were just going through the parameters. We weren't going to do that song, and then he told me to double back, and after like a 18-hour day, I doubled back, and we did that whole thing like for the rest of the night. We were running out of time, you know. We had to do it. So, yeah, I didn't look too good at the end of that record. It took a lot out of me, but it was such a triumph, you know, for those guys. When they came to me originally, they said, we want to make a record that goes into a wider spectrum, into this metal world, into an arena thing, all of that, because we've done the punk rock thing for so long now. But it has to maintain its punk rock credibility. And I said, sure, thinking, how the hell am I going to make that happen? But those guys are... there's a lot of intellect in that band, behind all of the ferocious stuff. So we always attacked problems intellectually and just said, okay, it does have to sound like you're clubbing seals and all this kind of thing. It has to sound that way, but there has to be a purpose behind it.
Right. Now I have a really just it's just kind of I don't want to say ridiculous. It's not a ridiculous question. It's just I'd say it's a ridiculously technical question, engineering wise. Did you guys use? I swear I'm hearing some sort of sidechain action on Vote with a Bullet. Now I don't know if.
Nope.
No.
Vote with a Bullet was.
How the hell did you get that thing to pulse on that quarter note? Because I swear, because that's one of the things that I actually do is I'll chain stuff to the kick and snare transients. Sometimes I'll do it with on the guitar bus and the bass bus. What the hell is going on there?
That's Reed Mullen, is what you're hearing is Reed Mullen. So Reed doesn't do a rebound snare hit. He buries the stick and keeps it in the head, right? Because he does that, it's absolutely, completely consistent every single time. So Stevie McAllister was engineering. He goes, hey, let's put a frozen flange on it. So it resonates, artificially, right? And that's why that snare hit is.
They put that on a separate bus then? Like they just sent it, or they?
No, it was a Neve. He put it in. He just put it in, patch bay.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you just mix the two
to taste. So it's like parallel. Okay, it's like a parallel sound.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wow.
That was Stevie came up with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I listened to that track. I mean, that's one of the when I'm in the gym or just if I'm just studying the thing, I just listen to it 5-10 times in a row. It's just like God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he first showed me that riff, he goes, "Hey, check this out." It goes dun 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 dun. I said, "Wow, that's cool. What's the rest?" Dun 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 dun. I said, "Okay, that's genius."
Bow.
He comes up with that stuff on like a 5-minute basis. He'll come up with a whole album.
Does that drop?
That's drop, yeah.
Yeah, it was drop what, D or?
It's drop D, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Now, walk me through the vocal tracking process for him. Like, let's just take Vote with a Bullet or just something on Blind. What was?
He likes you to put all the stuff on it right? So it's hitting a compressor, it's hitting some kind of stereo effect.
Right.
Little delay, little reverb, all that stuff.
Are you guys printing with that, or is that just
no monitoring? Okay. We're just monitoring it. But if it comes out really well, then we just
you'll just print it. Yeah, I've been doing that a lot lately as well, and I like that. I like that methodology.
Yeah. Because how do you get it back later?
Right. Just get it. Well, the only thing is if you're gonna comp or whatever, But I'll keep my chain the way it is. Nowadays I'll just take pictures of it. And in case I do have to recall it, but I really don't want to. I'll just keep listening over and over and over again and just take the takes that I like. And then, And the thing with analog, now that I have so much analog that I'm running through, every day is different.
Yeah.
But that's the magic of it, know?
Yeah.
But damn, what a width compared to plugins. I mean, they're great. I use them a lot in my workflow, but when you've got that analog, it's a whole different game changer.
Living and breathing,
Yeah. What Neve was that on? Do you remember?
No, that wasn't the legendary Neve that's in that documentary was on the record 5 years ago, I think.
Okay.
That's the one that Rupert came in and that Nirvana and Fleetwood Mac, all that, and Jesse's Girl, all that stuff is done on it. So that one was we recorded that in Dave Grohl's place in Los Angeles. Right. And then I don't remember. I don't remember what model it was. It's a Neve. It's an old Neve. So.
Well, it sounds like a Neve.
Yeah.
Though, man, they just have a growl to them that, You guys mixed on the Neve too, then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did everything on the Neve.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Let me go to Cry of Love for a second. Can we just switch over to Brother. Another album where it's just like speechless,
Yeah.
What was that tracking process like? Was that more or less right on the floor and then doing Kelly's vocal later?
No, we did a scratch guitar and got just drums first.
Okay.
And then we spent a lot of time on just sort of trying out different amp combinations.
Yeah.
He oddly is a scientist of that.
Were you guys doing a DI and then reamping later?
No.
Or was it all just
him playing? Yeah.
right on print? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he ended up using, I think,
Had
a couple of different
Marshall,
things.
right?
There was
like
one
a Plexi
Marshall
or something.
Yeah, there was one. There was a Marshall. We called it Ezekiel. I think that was the name of that amp. And then he had a Jubilee, and he had that white Strat. There were a couple different combinations, but we took a couple days where it was just because that was the main focus of that, because Kelly could do his vocals pretty quickly. But we wanted to try things that we'd never tried before, like the second guitar part,
right?
That the Rolling Stones trick and all of that stuff. So we would research which amp to use as the main amplifier, and then research what amp married that tone. So it was a process.
Was Kelly's vocal on a dynamic for that record? It sounds really nice and dry and kind of like in your face, a little bit of proximity.
It was a U87. It was a Neumann.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was that smooth on an 87, because I've tracked on an 87, and even me, like more in the baritone range, is still a little pingy for me. Mm-hmm. I had to do a lot of when I remixed the Terra Firma back in 2015. I remixed that last year. And I was like, God, man, this thing's bright. It was just going through a 1073. But it for some reason, it's just bright.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's compatibility, of course.
Yeah.
But, Kelly's voice.
God.
Was quite something.
Yeah. Well, I love how dry that record is. And I know that, right, that obviously was by no mistake, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, because differentiating from the pack is probably one of the greatest weapons that you see throughout music history.
Yeah.
Everything is, I'm Henry VIII, I am, and then come the Beatles, which is just nothing like anything before it. And everybody goes berserk. And then the same thing happens with, all these Led Zeppelin. People screamed and ran when Zeppelin played at first because they didn't know what it was, right? Black Sabbath, same thing. So now when you see these people who are coming out doing something different, it's a great equation, because so much stuff now sounds identikit. It's really the same thing over and over and over again. It's a bad plague that's going through music right now.
What's your opinion on Metallica? Because obviously the relationship with COC, they opened up for them for a while back in that era. Mm-hmm. And I was at the concert at PNC back, I think it was like January of this year, where they did the little DAG tribute. I don't know if you were there for that, but I witnessed. I was like, wait, is that DAG? Is that like...
Yeah.
That was cool.
Right.
That was cool.
Yeah, we've known them, and they've been really great senior senators,
Right.
They have really helped out a lot of people behind the scenes. And they were certainly good all the way through the time period. The whole 90s, I think. COC was touring with them, I think. And when James came in, and we recorded him on that song on Wise Blood. He had never done a guest appearance before, right?
Wow.
So he comes in and he does it, and he says, "Hey, man, we're going to this sports bar. We're going to watch the Tyson fight." So we all go to this place, and I thought everything was fine, but he just walks up and he's just pissed off, just really mad. And I
James
said,
Hetfield.
I said, "What's wrong?"
Pissed.
He's mad as shit. I said, what's wrong with you? He said, "I haven't been able to buy myself a beer in 9 years." And I said, "What? You must have money on you." He goes, No, they give them to me. They just give me the beer. Nobody will let me pay for it. And I said, "James, that's not a problem." Okay, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But so we got to see what it was like for them,
Man.
to have to live like that.
So you've met all of them, right?
They were right across the street from us doing Load when we were doing Wise Blood. That's why he came over.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you met Bob.
Yeah,
Right?
I did.
Oh my God.
Me and Bob. Yeah.
Oh, I can't handle it. Did you witness anything? Any?
He was at that bar. I think we talked about,
So that was in L.A., right?
no, it was in New York. They were at,
Oh,
they
okay.
were at the record plant.
I was gonna say I think that was at the plant.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting sounding record. I love it. It's just duller than the others, and I know James wasn't too happy about that in a couple of quotes that I saw from him, but. Bob Rock, man. Bob Rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I feel the same way with like you sitting across the table from me because to me it's the same. Like it's like the same tier
Right.
of talent, and I know I'm really fluffing you up, but it's just I gush when I listen to your production.
Well,
It's been very inspirational for me.
When I meet those guys, it's kind of weird. We talk about, like, okay, so
Sports or yeah.
we talked about, me and Butch Vig talked about when they came out with the razors with 5 razors on them, right? And I was used to the ones with 3, right? And I go, "I think the ones with 5 suck." He goes, "I know what you mean.
3 are better.
The 3 are better.
Yeah.
It's a better shape."
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And somebody walks up and says, "Oh, you guys are talking about microphones and all that." And I said, "No, we're talking about." And that's how that went.
That's great.
But I think it's the last thing they want to talk about. So you just,
Well, because they're doing it, there's so much pressure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dag.
Dag.
Gotta hit Dag. I actually saw Bobby Patterson at the Point because James Lugo. We were gonna get James on a few days ago because he was in town. But just the scheduling didn't work out, and I had to go to Charlotte for an event and some other stuff going on. But I just wanted to talk some Dag real quick. Righteous and the making of that record, another just like incredibly clean sounding, yet still had that nice summed funk,
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me just start with vocal production on Bobby's vocal. Like, were you just capturing what was there? Was it more of just playing around with different? Because he's using so many different timbres,
Yeah. Bobby is well, in as long as I've been doing all of this, I always say to people that the 2 most gigantic talents I've ever seen, like the 2 most talented people I've ever seen in my life, one of them is Bobby Patterson, because he can sing like that while he's playing bass like that. And he can play guitar and he can write and, all this, right? Yeah. So, and plus he's measured about it. He's a good guy. A lot of guys that were that talented probably weren't good guys. So I really appreciate what he is, and I always have. And he came to me one day. He said, "Hey, man, you want to have lunch?" I said, "Yeah, let's go have lunch." So he's like, "I want to do something." And I said, "Okay, you know that Mr. Potato Head band that you're in? You know how you sing 'Tell Me Something Good'? And you sing 'I Wish', and you sing, we should make an album like that. We should make an album that sounds just like it came out right then, right?" And he's like, "Oh, I can't sing like that." I said, "Shut up. Yes, you can. I've seen you do it a million times." So I said, "Let's just try it on one thing," right? And Corrosion of Conformity and Cry of Love had already been signed. So I had a pathway to the A&R department, and Columbia had just hired me for artist development. And
This is, when was this? Like 93?
93, 94, yeah.
Okay.
So we go in the studio and we do one song. I send it up there. They call me back right away and say, "We want whatever this is, we want it," right? And they sign them. They played like a half a set for the A&R department. They flew down here. And so I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "We don't have any more songs." I said, "That's fine. No problem. I've got to go do this Deliverance record with Corrosion of Conformity in Atlanta. So when I get back from that, then we'll write songs, and then we'll go do it in Muscle Shoals." So, all right. Go to Atlanta. Those sessions fall apart. They end early, and I come home, and the label says, "Well, you're home early. Why don't you guys go over there next week and do this DAG record?" Right? "You've got all the songs, right?" And I went, "Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah." We didn't have any. We didn't have anything. So
That's a lesson right there, is say yes and show up.
Say yes and show up. So we went down there, and me and Bobby and Brian, we just wrote the record right on the spot, mixed it, recorded it, everything, and that's Righteous. That's that Righteous record. So
Was Kenny on drums for that?
there's 3 drummers on there. Kenny's on most of it. And then Roger Hawkins from the Muscle Shoals rhythm section is on 2 songs. And Jason Patterson is on 1 song from Cry of Love.
Yeah. Jason's one of my favorites. Well, Kenny too, but
Yeah.
left-handed, right? Open-handed guys, man.
Yeah.
Some voodoo in there.
So yeah, those guys, the secret to the DAG thing is Kenny Soul and Bobby Patterson and Doug Jervey are all so talented that you can come up to Bobby and say, "Sing that the way you think," and he'll sing it. I said, "Now sing it kind of like if you crossed," and he'll do it that way. And then you say, now sing it like," and you can just keep going and going. He'll just keep giving it to you because he's that able to do it. And it's obvious because if you go watch his cover band, he sounds exactly like everybody's, so there's this endless possibility thing. But he's just got a coolness to his vocal delivery. The pronunciation is cool. And it's, he's an informed singer, obviously. I think he's been on a date or 2 because he sounds like he knows what women are. He knows what pain is. He knows he's that guy. So Righteous, yeah. He can sing like Marvin Gaye. He can sing like anybody. Amazing. That guy, I always say him and this bass player named John Heems are the 2 most talented people I've ever seen in my life. John Heems is, I don't know what happened when he was born. There must have been a planetary alignment or something, but he's quite something. If you ever get a chance to go see a cover band called Crush, he's the bass player. But if you ever go see his Who tribute band called The Whom, he's the drummer. And you're going to swear that you're watching Keith Moon play drums.
Jesus.
And if you ever get to see him play guitar, he's an amazing guitar player. Just
God.
else. Yeah. Cool guy.
Columbia, real quick, while we're still kind of in the Columbia circle. As an AR rep, then really safe to say, right? Because you were finding new talent for them at some point.
It was called artist development.
Artist development.
Yes, I tried a couple things down here, but some of these things were in the alternative world. So it was like right after there was a switch from everything being Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then it switched to alternative, right? And there was a sea change there at Columbia. And I produced this guy, Chris Whitley, and worked with a couple of things. Wrote a song with Sass Jordan, who just got us in Canadian Idol, all that stuff. And did a couple of things in that world. But I kind of thought that I was on this short list for the next Aerosmith record. And they were saying, oh, you should really go for that, right? But I thought there was talent here. I thought that they don't need, Aerosmith does not need me. But I thought there were some bands from here that should have been the biggest thing ever. There was The Velt. There was a band called Hipbone. There was a band called Cerebellum. There was a lot of just ridiculously talented people. So I stayed here and tried to get those things to happen. And then once the 2000s kind of ended, 9/11, it really signaled the end of a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I got
it's
you.
tough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been keeping busy regardless.
Mm-hmm.
You know. It was, I'll just say this real quick. It was an honor to receive the Rock Mail Artist.
That was cool
Award
how that
from you.
worked out.
That was so nuts.
It was
man.
good.
I was like, is this even happening right now? You know?
Yeah.
I think that was 2015. Yeah.
Is it 15? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which
yeah,
is
that was
just-
good.
Time is
Yeah.
just flying.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go to the shootout, I want to talk about future projects that you have coming up, and also just let's start with that.
Future?
Yeah.
I'm talking to some people in Los Angeles. They're doing a movie based on a funk band. Imagine why they would pick me. And they want me to score the movie.
Oh, that'll be sweet.
And work with. They've got a bunch of things going right now. So, and you know how the movie thing, it's slow.
Oh my God.
It's so slow.
You know, so many moving parts.
So that's going to be good once I score that. And then it's probably going to become maybe a television series.
Wow.
So I don't tell anybody any kind of time frame on that because they have to deal.
Of course, yeah.
And they're on fire half the time.
You probably signed a non-disclosure at this point. And,
Yeah. And there's a new Big Something record coming out very soon. We just finished it.
Cool.
That's coming out probably right at the beginning of the new year, I think, maybe sooner. And then we're doing I'm working with this band that I've wanted to work with for years and years called Confessor. If you're a bad person and you die and you are sentenced to hell, the band that will be playing in hell is Confessor. It is the most doom. It is the most dark ever.
Wow.
And they have this super drummer, and it's just, I wanted to do them years and years ago because I always thought that they were an anomaly, really, in the metal world. And they're from here. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm doing a guy named Nico, just fantastic vocalist, total, as soon as he walks in, you know that guy belongs on the stage.
Right.
Nico at Team. And I'm working with right now, I got a call from Stephen Gibb from Black Label Society. He's thinking about doing something. It's undefined, but, you know.
Is Steven the other guitar player?
Yeah.
Currently?
Yeah.
That guy's a monster.
Yeah. That's Barry Gibb's son from the Bee Gees. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he can upsize his value meal all he wants. It's no problem there. And he's down in North Miami where we recorded the drum tracks for Wise Blood. And I actually ran into him and there's a super guitar player down there. And that's where I ran into this guy who I thought was insane. He came up and started yelling something at me. Big, long beard and everything, and this wild hair and these glasses. And he runs out of the room. And they said, "What did he say?" And I said, Who was that? That was Yngwie Malmsteen. He looked like a prospector. He had this big, long beard. Crazy. Out of his mind, crazy.
Well, let's talk about Yngwie real quick. I mean, you know, everybody's got their own opinion. You can't deny him, though.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's just like...
He should have gotten a really great vocalist and been the guitar player. Because just listening to him play, it's, wow, that's really something. But
15 minutes.
yeah.
That's about it.
If he'd had his David Lee Roth guy, whatever,
Yeah.
it would have been, I think, much better. Alcatraz, you know. But apparently he's quite something, you know.
Well, legacy for you in big picture, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you know. And I don't know if you're one of those people that thinks along those lines, or are you more just present in the moment? Again, probably a combination of both. Where are you going?
Well, I can't think for a moment that I'm the only person to think this, but when I go see someone and I just happen to walk into a bar and there's somebody doing something musically and they're amazing, the first instinct is to get them somewhere, get them to the next level, right? And that's all I've ever done, really. I have always thought, why go to New York and Los Angeles anymore when there are all these people here that are fantastic and all they need is what I can offer, right? And I think I want to, I'm writing an opera. My opera's about 60% done, right? And I'm going to collaborate with choirs and this guy Marvin Duval, who he heads up 4 choirs downtown. So I'm going to tap these. I asked him, is there anyone in your choir that sounds like Aretha Franklin? And he said, John, everybody in my choir sounds like Aretha Franklin. So I want those people to get somewhere, not just sing at the family picnic or whatever.
Yeah.
I think they belong as far as they can get. And that's what I want to do. And quite honestly, I love the idea that most of the people that I've worked with are from right here. We got out there.
Yeah. Well, you're the perfect person to have on this vlog because this, again, the intent of this was to spotlight and showcase folks that are from the Triangle area.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much talent here, you know, homegrown.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get to the shootout. So, vocal mic.
Vocal mic.
Yeah.
Brett at B&B Studios in Carborough makes his own versions of It might be a U87, but he makes his own.
Yeah,
And I think
47, 67, 87.
They sound better, I think.
Yeah.
He's going to make a console next, I think. He's got a hell of a future. He's really a great engineer.
We got to get him on.
Yeah.
That'd be a really cool interview. Guitars. Let's say electric in this case.
Electric guitar?
Yeah.
I'm boring. I'm at the Stratocaster. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Drums.
Old Slingerlands.
Bass.
Old P bass. Yeah.
Yeah. How about the amp?
Vox. The old Vox where they used to pour sand in the back, force all the sound out of the front. You couldn't pick the damn things up.
That's actually funny, not to digress, but cabinets, open or closed, what do you think?
I like those new orange ones.
Orange puts out a damn good amp.
Whoever
man.
is designing for them now is having a hell of a period here. Pep's doing that now.
Yeah.
And wow, it's wonderful.
They're just standalone. They have a sound within themselves. They're incredible. Background vocals. You could think of it as a performance or treatment, engineering treatment, whichever way you want to go about it.
That one-time event in Gimme Shelter. Her, whoever she is.
Her.
Yeah.
We'll go with her. Yeah.
The Gimme Shelter girl. There's a documentary about that.
The vocal breaks and they kept it in the take. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Synth.
Moog Prodigy.
Compression. General.
Blackface 1176.
Okay. Not a shocker to me. EQ. We'll just go with general.
Focusrite.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. Wasn't expecting that. Piano.
I'm not going to remember the name of it. It was a off-brand, and somebody had one in this studio in New York, and I cannot remember the name.
Upright or
it was
baby?
It was a baby grand.
Okay.
It didn't sound like a baby grand though. It's gorgeous.
Acoustic guitar.
Taylor.
Okay. Verse.
Best verse. Again, if you just read the lyrics to Brown Sugar, the Gold Coast slaver found for cotton fields, sold in a market down in New Orleans. Love that.
Chorus. Yeah.
What's that New York thing Alicia Keys does? New York, that thing. That's.
Oh, yes. The dreams are made of.
Mm-hmm. Love her.
Man, that came out, what was that, like 5 or 10 years ago?
Yeah.
That's been out for a little bit now.
But I saw her do it on her no makeup tour. And, it'd be nice to.
Yeah, damn.
Buy her a taco or something. I don't know. She's quite something.
Bridge.
Woke up, got out of bed, day in the life.
Yeah. So you would call that a bridge?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They had weird names.
They had strange arrangements.
They called them a middle eight. That's what they called it.
Middle eight.
Yeah. Do it in the middle eight.
Well, let me say this real quick while we're on McCartney. In my opinion, "Oh Darling," and I think I've said this on the show before. To me, that's like the epitome of a rock tenor vocal.
Yeah.
Like, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Anyway.
Do you know Wings stuff? Do you know a song on Venus and Mars called Love in Song?
Not off the top of my head. I've probably heard it.
Yeah.
But I'll have to
Yeah.
send me the link to that. Yeah.
You're going to hear it and you're going to buy a scallop neck guitar. Once you hear that damn thing, you're
Right,
gonna want
right. Ingve. I think he had his frets scalped, yeah. Guitar solo.
Guitar solo. Greatest guitar solo.
Or just guitar solo, like what comes to mind for you?
Well, I guess guitar solo. It's Bohemian Rhapsody. It's that one.
You know what? I 100% agree with you. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. I can't even add anything to that. Yeah, I can't. Reverb.
Lexicon.
Yes, sir. We got one in there, and I love it. Just got it earlier this year. Delay.
Delay. We had this crappy one in. It was great. It was quick. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was blue.
Blue delay. Anything blue.
It was that secondary market kind of gear.
Was it outboard gear or was it like?
It was outboard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Auto tune. Or Melodon or what? Yeah.
Sure. If it's undetectable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drum machine.
Well, the first one was this thing called R707.
R707.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that Roland?
That's Roland.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was before the 808, 909.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen one of those.
I haven't seen one in 25 years, probably. Yeah. Looks like a big piece of candy.
Samples.
Samples?
Yeah.
That James Brown scream that's on every single Public Enemy song. That one.
Master bus.
Master bus. What is that thing called? I've heard some people grab the master bus with a Pultec and do real well with it. And there's another one with the different colored knobs. What's that one called? And all of that. But there are these mastering guys. There's Dave Harris at Studio B in Charlotte. There's Seva in Knoxville, Tennessee. He goes to Tel Aviv every year and gets the stuff a year before it comes out here. And of course, there's the guys, in New York at the usual places. But Dave Harris just got a Grammy for something. I don't know the artist, but he got a Grammy for his mastering work.
Wow.
He's from here.
That's cool. Console, which I probably already know what you're going to say.
Sure, that Neve? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Magic Neve.
And Prees, which is probably... Well, I don't know, because there's a lot of choices out there, and that's why I've kind of separated it from console,
The Prees on an SSL are pretty sweet.
Very clean, very punchy.
Yeah.
At least from my experience.
Those are the kinds of things I usually look at my engineer and say, who are you in love with today?
Yeah.
Right? Because they're going to change next week.
Right.
So.
Cool. Click track. That's the last one I have on here.
Depending on, the technical needs of the song. Click track, sure.
Do you experiment with tempo changes? No, okay, so verse and chorus and bridge. Sometimes you'll play around with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do it by half a BPM? Do you do it by a full?
I don't know. I don't know.
It just depends.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know it when you hear it.
You know when you hear it.
You ever check out the tempo at the beginning of Paradise City and the tempo at the end of Paradise City?
Yeah. I don't think that was to a click.
That was to Jack Daniels, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. The last question, which I ask everybody, which is, if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, now, knowing what you know, what would you say? What would you tell them?
Don't listen to anyone who's not initiated, right? If they've done something, if you see achievement, if they can put something on the table, then listen to them. If you want what they have to give. But the rest of the people, do not listen to them. Because all they're going to do is say, you're never going to, you can't get there, and all of that. The people that have achieved always seem, in my opinion and in my experience, they look at you and say, yeah, there's an answer for everything. It's just if you're willing to pay the price and if you've got the goods and all that. But yeah, there's a way to get to where you want to get to.
Let me ask you this real quick, also as a little add-on. Do you at all think you compromised at any point in your career? I know it's like a really crazy, just
Compromised.
artistically.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I was in New York and I was looking at one of those arch hotel entrances with gargoyles and angels and all of this work. And I was with a woman who was an architect, and I said, why is this gone? Nobody does this anymore. And she said, well, the 60s kind of ruined architecture, and all that. But I said, but who did it? And she said, well, in those days, the days of the craftsmen, their work was how they signed their name, right? And that always stuck with me. My work is how I sign my name. I can't be like one of these guys that walks around pounding my chest, because I've got challenges waiting for me tomorrow. So it's not over.
When it's over, it's over.
When it's over, it's over. Yeah. Yeah.
When it's over, you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beethoven, again, he was writing music on his deathbed. He was still writing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's... Well, hopefully that's us,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
we've paid attention so far, so it goes to show what paying attention does for you,
Well, I look up to the way that you've paid attention, and hopefully I am paying attention, But I cannot thank you enough for coming out on this November rain.
November rain. That's right.
Day here in mid-November. I think you went through 2 Gatorades.
I did.
What were those?
I did.
32 ounce?
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Man. You got enough calories out of those for the next 8 to 12 hours,
Sure.
But send me any links of the new material. We'll put it in the description box below.
Okay.
If there is anything, I know a lot of it's still in the works and whatnot. But any last words at all?
No, I think the Axl Rose thing was good. That's the way to go out. I actually like that song.
It's a great song.
That the chorus.
Yeah.
Need some time on you. That's a great chorus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you'd call that the chorus? Mm-hmm. I guess you could, yeah. I always thought of it as like a is there even such a thing as a post-chorus?
Yeah, that song, how long? That song's like 4 days long or something.
Yeah.
It's probably 3 choruses, isn't it?
Yeah, I have an interesting memory with that. It's a fun memory with that. It's a long song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming out. This is great.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, you guys know where to find this guy. Hit him up, and I mean, your Facebook's probably loaded up, right, at this point. It's mine. I can't, like, I'm constantly deleting, like, accounts that don't exist anymore because it's the 5,000 limit. So,
Right.
But Instagram, right? You have an Instagram.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what the handle is on that?
I don't.
Okay. Well, I'll find. I'll put it in the description box. But thanks for tuning in on this Artist Lounge, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.
Good one.